So today we will be talking about the Taylor Swift album, Life of a Showgirl, TS12. And we are not talking about the album itself. We will reserve our theories and our judgments for the Patreon this week, where we'll also actually be talking about Leave from America. It's kind of a stacked
Tron.
But for now, we would like to discuss the contrasting reviews. We read the Atlantic's review, the New Yorker's review, and the Rolling Stones' Dick Suck. Would you call it a review?
Yeah, so let's first discuss The Life of a Showgirl. This is Taylor Swift's 12th studio album. Taylor Swift, in the last couple of years, has...
Ever heard of her?
Okay, so Taylor Swift, she's a musician. She, in the last couple of years, has obviously made headlines every 14 seconds because she was re-recording all of her albums because her masters had been bought out from under her. So she, in an act of defiance, re-recorded most of her catalog so that she could own her masters. Then she did a massive tour, the Eras Tour, which was, I think, the highest grossing tour that's ever happened. She used that money to then also buy back her masters. So now she had her re-recordings and her masters. She owns every piece of music she's ever made. She used her Grammys win when she won Album of the Year for Midnights? To announce a 2-part 11th album called The Tortured Poets Department, which then was released as a 2-part album. Then
31 songs, 13 backwards.
A year and a half later, the Eras Tour has wrapped. She's gotten engaged to her football star boyfriend, and she put out her 12th album, The Life of a Showgirl.
Can I say, I won a Grammy for Best Album. I had the highest grossing tour, and then my boyfriend won the Super Bowl. I also would be bad at coming up with analogies. I would just be like, I don't know, it's really good. Like, think about the best thing. It's like that good.
So something important about Taylor Swift is that she's extremely prolific. Like, she puts out a lot of music, but she also puts out a lot of versions of all of that music. She puts out live versions. She puts out remixes. She puts out a lot of stuff. And people obviously speculate that it's so that she can continue to rule the charts. When she has an album that goes number one, or when she has a song that goes number one, she'll put out versions of it and versions of it and versions of it in a way that people suspect is to maintain her number one status by like never letting anyone else even get close.
So the Rolling Stone reviewed this new album, and I'll just read some snippets. Taylor Swift has stood atop the pop world, glittering in a sequined midnight blue bodysuit with rainbow confetti falling at her feet. She has mesmerized stadiums packed with fans whose screams and cheers register on the Richter scale. She's broken streaming and chart records, she said herself. She's released a career's worth of music in the span of 5 years. Nearly 2 decades into her career, spinning in her highest heels, she has reached a whole new artistic and personal peak, each time reaching higher and higher than the last. This review basically is like, everything she does is great, and this album is greater than anything she's ever done, which is like a new height of greatness. And it's not just written all in fawning over Taylor. It's like written in Taylor talk in her own universe.
Overall, I think that the shortcoming of starting out with the fact that Taylor Swift is quite objectively on top of the world is the fact that this album is angry and trying to prove something. And so to say everything is going so perfect for her, and that's why this glittering album is perfect, makes no fucking sense. Because if everything is perfect for her, this is actually a fairly antagonistic album that, like, if things are perfect, the album is out of place. And
yeah, if what she's trying to convey is happiness, why does she seem so fucking pissed off? So something I found very interesting about this review, as I said, is that like people have wondered, did Taylor Swift pay for this review? And I would say, I don't know that she paid for it, but I do feel her team wrote it. With her 12th studio album, the musician shoots into a fresh echelon of superstardom and hits all her marks.
It feels very much like Taylor Swift and Rolling Stone have an important relationship, that they kind of went back and forth and were like, okay, here's our review. What do you think? Okay, we're working on, what do you think? And then there was enough back and forth that Rolling Stone just said, hey, why don't you write it and send it back to us?
It's just so ripe with Taylor self-referentialness.
I mean, spinning in her highest heels.
The fate of Ophelia is clear that Swift has stepped into uncharted territory. And then she was later like, the omnichord trills make you want to keep listening to find out just how Swift changed her prophecy. That's a reference to the song The Prophecy. They're talking about how this album stands in contrast to the Tortured Poets Department, which was grayish and long, and this is iridescent and tight. That's all by mastermind design, of course. No one could have known that when Swift played her Martin-era masterpiece, New Romantics, during the final Eras Tour surprise song set, it was an Easter egg for the soundscape of this album. I mean, one has to wonder, did the author of this article even recognize that? Or were they given talking points?
One does have to wonder. So this review fell pretty far out of line with the internet's consensus.
And yeah.
And I think something very interesting about the response to this album, listen, I listened to it 4 times all the way through, 3 times on a run, and then again separately. And I do find it extremely listenable.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's a compliment. I think like lots of things are easy to listen to. I think Tate McRae is pretty listenable, but I don't listen to it and go, that's genius stuff.
I'm sorry, can I read one more quote that I just said? Oh my God. She is as hilarious as ever, comparing a foe to a toy chihuahua and then thanking all the haters that call her bad news. She's bolder than she's been, embodying a dick-singing music mogul with eerie threats.
Okay.
Oh my God, this one kills me. As she reaches for new heights. No. There's something, I like read it and I'm like, there's an announcer reading this.
Yeah. I mean, she wrote it for herself. For like, this was like originally the voiceover for the documentary.
Showgirl is the castle she built out of all the bricks that they have thrown at her. She begged on her knees to change the prophecy, and the love she writes about here did just that.
And that's the thing of where this is written by Taylor's team, is because Taylor believes that people are throwing bricks and she needs to build a castle to protect herself. I guess the thing that's fundamentally disjointed from Taylor Swift, I think with Reputation, she had a point, and since then it's been very difficult for her to paint herself as the underdog. I mean, on Midnights, she was the anti-hero. On Tortured Poets Department, she was like hanging from the gallows by the audience who hates her. Like, she's always talking about these haters. And I think as someone who has now had the biggest world tour that's ever lived and used that money to buy back her mat, like, she has everything. She has the fiance. She has the rights to her music. She has the record-breaking success. If someone wrote a mean tweet about her, like, who fucking cares? And who even, like, why does that person matter? Because she won. She has lines in this album about being like at a height so high, like no one could ever deny her success again. And it's true. Like, at this point, say what you want about Taylor Swift, she is one of the most successful pop stars of all time. Like, you can't have the conversation of the greatest of all time without including Taylor Swift. I'm not saying she is the greatest of all time. I'm just saying it would be stupid to exclude her from that conversation. And so to sit here and act like people are hurling bricks and it's affecting her, like, what do you mean? She has a lyric on one of her songs about being officially too big to fail. And it's true. And I don't disagree with that at all. And I like a lot of her music. The problem is that when we exist in this world where no criticism of Taylor is valid because you either can't criticize the music because it's objectively award-winning. Like, there's nothing you can criticize without people, like, not necessarily even disagreeing with you, but proving why you're wrong. Like, what does she mean, the bricks? Like, what does it matter even?
Well, the problem is, like, the way that her fans act in their most extreme is like a top-down problem that is being signified and like allowed and encouraged by Taylor herself. And I think this relationship she has with Rolling Stone is very clear that, like, you know, loyalty, as this album has shown, is very important to her. And she would rather you be a bad person who is nice to her than like a good person who questions her. Absolute loyalty to her is paramount in terms of what she values in a person. And I think, unfortunately, we have a magazine that's being held hostage. I guess that's the power she built for herself. I do wonder if like a one Taylor Swift cover pays for the rest of the year.
So I want to get to what I find the most egregious line in this entire review. For Showgirl's curtain call, Swift is even beckoned by the freedom that could come if she gave up her crown one day. The closing track, notably the title track, prominently features none other than Swift's understudy, Sabrina Carpenter. I guess I do think to call Sabrina Carpenter Swift's understudy is like needlessly cruel. They're just two different pop stars and both can exist.
And I feel like they're trying to do it under, I imagine it was to stay within the theme of Showgirl. But still, sometimes there's two people on a stage.
There can be two people on a stage. There can also be two people on different stages, which is where they naturally tend to be. And I know Sabrina opened for Taylor.
But that's not an understudy.
That's not what an understudy is. If Taylor Swift had been sick one night, the Eras Tour would have been canceled that night. They wouldn't have sent Sabrina Carpenter on. I think this Rolling Stone article is obviously why Rolling Stone is going to remain in the good graces. I think the way Sabrina Carpenter, it seems, is just going to accept that, like, someone's going to call her an understudy. It's not her problem. Like, that's why she'll stay in Taylor Swift's good graces and reap the benefits and also deal with the negatives, which is this.
So I read the New Yorker article called "Do We Still Like Taylor Swift When She's Happy?" And it's kind of about like the response to the Showgirl and the fact that people find it not to be her greatest work of art, specifically in terms of lyricism. And it opens basically saying, you know, if I were to talk about Travis Kelce, a man I've never met, I guess I would talk about how like good he is at football and how big his hands are and his new podcast and his vibes seem pretty good. And that's, of course, what she talks about on her album. That doesn't seem like there's any intimate moments that we wouldn't have already known about.
Secret moments in a crowded room.
Yeah, they got no idea about me and you. And he says, like, it's pretty misogynistic that we would say, oh, because she's married or because she's happy, she's not going to write good music. But of course, this is a woman who has developed this incredibly relatable amount of work. And I think the relatability is part of what makes it so great. And this parasocial relationship about her exes. And she's joked about it in Blank Space. And it's true that she has these muses and that she has written a lot of love songs. Is it fair to ask, like, what will happen if being in love and being married and having this happily ever after will impact her work? And, you know, I think you want to say, no, of course not. And the evidence is, of course not. Reputation is a lover album.
And that's the thing, is she's written amazing love songs before. And this is not something that I'm saying with research. I've not gone through her entire catalog and tallied what I like and don't like. I think I like her more when she's happy.
Yeah.
Because I don't like very often the songs where she's negative or talking about how hard it is to be famous, because I don't think it rings true for her. And I have a really hard time separating the art from the artist in that context. I don't like hearing about Taylor Swift talk about all the eyes on her and like what it's like to be the center and to deal with all of people's expectations of her, because she continues to up the ante on our expectations of essentially all pop stars. And I think that if she felt this way, there are changes. Like, she is a leader in the industry. I think that there are changes she could make that would affect almost everyone. And she really only cares about her own bottom line in a way where I'm like, I guess just tell me when you're happy then, because when you're sad, I find it deeply unrelatable.
So basically what this article is talking about is like the kind of sexism that we've seen in response to this new album, that I feel that this third album, post Folklore Evermore, where I do think she was pretty universally beloved musically. And then Midnights came out to some questioning, and then TTPD came out to some questioning. And it seems as though The Life of a Showgirl has kind of broken open the floodgates of being allowed to criticize Taylor Swift's music prowess.
Can I say one thing about that? I do think that this album is not good. Like, I do think the lyricism is not strong. I think the storytelling is not strong. I think that the musicality is, like I said earlier, listenable, but like, I don't think it's groundbreaking in any way. And I think that because her last two albums have been kind of bloated and out of place, I think a lot of times, like, the aesthetic hasn't necessarily matched the music. There have been things that aren't up to par with what we've seen from Taylor Swift on her last couple albums. But I think that there was like a lot of backlash for anyone who dared vocalize that. And now, because the consensus, I think it's just reached a critical mass and people have to say, like, okay, she's not perfect. Not everything she puts out is better than the last thing. And because we've all kind of agreed that maybe it's okay to critique Taylor Swift a little bit, I think everyone like took a deep breath and said, well, I've got some grievances.
Yeah, so he's saying to combat this fear that, oh, maybe we just don't like her when she's happy, or the accusation that she can't write happy music. He's saying, first of all, some of her great songs are love songs from the Reputation era, from the Lover era, even from Midnights, like Sweet Nothings is very sweet. He's saying, if fans think the problem with The Life of a Showgirl is that Swift is happy, then I would encourage them to listen to the album again. Resentment of basically everyone besides Kelsey is present throughout the songs. She's got enemies in Hollywood, in the music industry, and all over the internet. And Wishlist, where Swift distances herself from people who want, quote, 3 dogs that they call their kids, a surprising lyric from someone who once proudly called herself a childless cat lady. She also dreams of telling the world to leave us the fuck alone, and they do. As a longtime fan wrote on X, for years it felt like she wrote songs that spoke to the core of the female experience at its most vulnerable. It felt like she lived and learned in parallel with her listeners, and that feeling is gone. Swift is about to marry Kelsey, but it's possible that in Showgirl, she's breaking up with us. And I do think that that is something that is important about this album, and this idea that it's not some iridescent, happy, joyful glitter pen album. It's like weirdly pissed off. And I think the dissonance the audience is feeling with the penmanship is that we can't really tell what she's pissed at because she won.
Exactly. And I do think, just in a contrast a little bit to in this album, she's breaking up with us. I still don't know what she's saying in this album that she didn't say in Who's Afraid of Little Old Me, the one where she says, I'm having his baby, the one where, like, there's a couple songs from Tortured Poets Department that fully encapsulate, I think, everything that we're getting on Showgirl, but like with better music. Like, she already broke up with us. Like, she already told us she doesn't care what we think. She can do it with a broken heart. She's lying to us all the time. Like, she already told us all that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was funny. My dad goes, Life of the Showgirl, what's that all about? And I go, oh, it's Taylor Swift's new album. And he goes, yeah, but like, what's she got to say about it? And I go, that's a really interesting question. And one I do not feel the album answers, except for, I guess, in the song, The Life of a Showgirl, when she goes, somebody once told me I couldn't, but now I can and I will.
Yeah.
She's doing it.
She's doing it.
If you hadn't heard, she's a showgirl. Anyway, do you want to tell us what The Atlantic said? Because actually, this article is by...
So this article is by Spencer Kornhaber,
who wrote the article that we loved about the future of culture. Is culture dead?
And, you know, he really didn't think this was a great album. And he really points to the fact that it doesn't sound like she's having fun. She's become too cynical to sell a fairy tale. And I think that that's true. Like, when you talk about the piece she wrote for Rolling Stone about herself, that she's building a castle out of all the bricks that have been hurled at her. What bricks? Like, she's too cynical to write the story that she wants to tell because she is so obsessed with the negative when it seems she's being showered most of the time in positive. And like, instead of living in her fairy tale world that she's built for herself, she could live atop a castle and never once interact with, you know, us peasants. But what she does is she stews on it, and then she decides that no criticism matters. Do you know what I mean? Like, and she gets angry about it. Like, we've talked a little bit about the mogification of Taylor Swift.
I mean, that's what we'll talk about on the Patreon.
And there is something to be said for the fact that, like, she has this Republican-coded belief that, like, not only does she deserve everything, but if you dare say a damn word about it, you're a huge problem. And I do think it is like a cynicism that like really has seeped into every aspect of this album and made it really unenjoyable. I guess there are a lot of things that people have asked her to be upset about and she won't. And so the things that she's chosen to be upset about, it's hard to be like, oh, you're right. Like, that sucks. I don't care. Theoretically, this is an interesting place for Swift, the ever-striving Sagittarius, to be at the end of a checklist of goals and still unsatisfied. Her Economics Quaking Eras tour flaunted the power earned by years of hard work. Her engagement to Travis Kelce appeared to fulfill the romantic quest she has long sung about. Unfortunately, Showgirl is the sound of an overworked, overexposed entertainer reaching the mountaintop to find something worse than disappointment, burnout. And I still have to ask the question, then why not take a year off?
I think that's what the music is revealing. I don't think that's what she's trying to tell us. She's not singing about burnout.
Yeah.
She's singing about winning.
And he talks about like what's missing from the typical like Martin and Shellback banger. And he says it's novelty and passion. And I do agree with that. It feels very like empty.
Yeah.
He talks even about Midnights. The album was barbed with intrigue. It captured a journey inward. Showgirl, by contrast, doesn't raise or answer questions other than what's the point of releasing an album whose music seems so exhausted and on guard? And I think that that's something I really agree with. She seems just like upset to have to reveal anything or to answer any questions. The question is why?
Mm-hmm. I saw for the Showgirl's last trick, you'll never guess what she's doing next. She's selling more variants.
Yay. So on the Patreon, we're going to talk about
our personal belief about the music and each song and what we've liked and what we're questioning, et cetera, et cetera. We're also going to talk about Lee from America.
Oh, wait, no. I also want to talk about Swift versus Charlie.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into that.
I have a lot to say about the Charlie situation.